Hello, everyone, and welcome to Yellow Sub's Guide to Anime on VHS. I hope to make this a series where I cover many different formats and maybe other topics related to collecting anime on home media. But a bit of a disclaimer, this is supposed to be a beginner's guide, so if you already know a thing or two about video formats, this won't be new information. And I want this to be simple, so I will absolutely skip over some more niche information. And finally, this is focused on North American anime releases, so I'll talk a little bit about Japanese releases, but not a ton. Also, I'm sorry, but I won't be talking about beta. I know there's some anime on beta, but that's mainly Japanese releases. I once saw a Macross beta tape for sale on Right Stuff, but that's the only North American anime beta tape I've ever seen. As of the making of this video, you can still find the listing on the Crunchyroll store, but it's sold out. Anyway, on to the actual guide. Some of you may remember VHS, but for those who don't, here is a VHS tape. It's called a tape because the data is stored on a magnetic tape that is read by the player called a VCR. If you want a VCR, you can sometimes find them for under $20 at Goodwill. Some VCRs are better than others, but if you're just starting out, just look for one with stereo audio. You can tell if it has stereo audio by looking at the outputs on the back. The yellow one is for composite video, while the white and red ones are for the two audio channels. If it doesn't have the red one, that means it's mono audio. Mono audio is pretty hard to listen to, in my opinion. However, don't expect amazing audio quality even if you have a stereo unit. VHS is admittedly not a great format, even though I love it. As for video, you can see the quality of the video on screen. It's not as bad as some people make it out to be, but it's definitely not good. As long as the tape and player are in working order, it's watchable. But before you buy a VCR and a bunch of VHS tapes, check your TV to make sure it has the correct inputs. Remember those yellow, white, and red outputs on the VCR? Look for the same thing on your TV. If you find them, great, use those, and you're done. Note that you will need a cable with yellow, white, and red plugs on both ends. But you may also find inputs that look like them, but have different colors. These are for component video, which is better than composite, but not as good as HDMI. You can still use these for your VCR, but it's a bit confusing. First, find the white input. This is the easy one. Put the white cable into the white input. If you remember, this is one of the audio channels. The other audio channel is the red cable, and it will go into the red input. But wait, there are two red inputs. Yeah, this is annoying. Hopefully your TV has these labeled so you can find the correct one, but it's usually next to the white input as they are both for audio. If you mess up, don't worry, you can always fix it later. Finally, the yellow video cable goes into the green input. No, that doesn't make any sense at all, but just roll with it. Ignore the remaining red and blue inputs. If you have something that uses component video, you will use those, but most VCRs use composite video. But what if you look on the back of your TV and you find no inputs that look like the outputs on the VCR? Unfortunately, a lot of modern TVs are ditching these inputs. Some TVs have a single input for all three cables, which requires an adapter. But some TVs can't take these cables at all. In that case, you'll need a converter or a different TV. I will mention that VCRs can have other output options. Composite video is just the most common one. RF uses a coaxial cable, but the quality of this can range from just as good as composite to absolutely terrible. I don't recommend it personally. S-Video is another output, and it's a fine option. Just be aware that you will still need to use the two white and red audio outputs with this. In the end, just choose whatever works with your TV and experiment to find the best quality. In my opinion, just find a setup that works, and if you want to upgrade later, go for it. There's no need to buy the best equipment right away. I have multiple VCRs, and I even have one with HDMI output, which makes capturing video really easy. But that doesn't mean it has the best video and audio quality. My point is, this is a complicated topic, so if you're just starting out, don't worry, just buy a cheap VCR. You should also be aware that VHS is formatted in a 4:3 aspect ratio instead of the modern 16:9 ratio. This means that the video is more square than our widescreen TVs. Unfortunately, if you use a modern TV with a VCR, the TV will often stretch the video to fill the screen. But don't worry, this can be fixed in your TV's settings. The way to change it depends on your TV, but just go into your picture settings and choose the option that works. This will leave empty black space on either side of the video, which is normal. Now let's get back to anime. There are plenty of anime releases on VHS, starting in the 80s and going all the way up to the early 2000s. That's the first thing to note. If an anime came out after the early 2000s, it probably doesn't have a VHS release. The second thing to note is that with VHS, you will get either the subbed version or the dubbed version. You won't get both on one tape. Some anime had both a subbed release and a dubbed release, but a lot of shows and movies only had one or the other. There simply wasn't a way to switch between audio tracks, and subtitles were hard coded into the video, so you can't turn them off. There are no chapters on a VHS and no menu. This means that you can't pick a starting point like a particular episode. You will need to fast forward or rewind to get to the spot that you want. Each tape typically has either one film or 2 to 4 regular length episodes. This means that to collect a 26 episode show like Evangelion, you will need 13 tapes, which takes up a lot of space. So now that I've talked about how terrible and inconvenient VHS tapes are, why collect them? DVDs and Blu-rays are better in every single way, so why bother? Well, there's a couple reasons. The first is a very subjective reason, that being the aesthetic. Some people just like the poor video and audio quality. It's nostalgic for a lot of people. Or maybe you didn't grow up with VHS, but you think it's an interesting novelty. No one can tell you what to like, so if you like VHS, go ahead and collect and have fun. The second reason is more objective. There are some shows that were released on VHS, but haven't seen a release since. Not on Laserdisc, not on DVD, not on Blu-ray. I have Compiler and Compiler 2, which were released on VHS, but haven't gotten a North American release since. You may be thinking, well, if it was never released again, it must suck.
You saw my fanny, my breasts, pubic hair, and you didn't even say how nice they were! Ah!
And yeah, it does. But you know what doesn't suck? 1 Pound Gospel. If the art looks familiar, you must be a fan of Rumiko Takahashi. That's right, this little OVA is an adaptation of a manga by Rumiko Takahashi, the creator of Urusei Yatsura, Ranma 1/2, Inuyasha, and more. I love this OVA, and this is the only North American release it ever got. If you want to own this, VHS is your only choice.
こいつに食べさせたの？は？シスターまだこの教会に来て間がないから知らないでしょうけど。いけないんですよ。この子に食べ物を与えては。どういう意味ですか？それは。
The third reason to collect VHS as an anime fan is that it's fully compatible with Japanese releases. A Japanese tape can play in an American VCR without any issues. Both North America and Japan use the NTSC television encoding system, so our TVs, VCRs, and VHS will all work together. Unfortunately, this isn't true everywhere, so if you live elsewhere, you'll need to do some research. But if you live in North America, this is actually one advantage that VHS has over DVD. Japanese DVDs won't work on American players. So if you come across a Japanese VHS, feel free to add it to your collection without any worries. Now, where can you find anime on VHS? Being a dead format, you won't find VHS from normal retailers. The obvious places would be online shops like eBay, Mercari, or whatnot. You can find a lot on there, but do yourself a favor and don't pay too much. Unless it's a particularly rare VHS tape, it isn't worth much. But online resellers will try to act like their copy of Sorcerer Hunters Volume 3 is worth $40. I suggest going to local secondhand stores. Almost every secondhand store has some VHS tapes, but your luck will vary. Half Price Books almost always has some anime on VHS, but they can be a bit pricey. Stores like Goodwill will sell them for much cheaper, but anime isn't too common there. And of course, a local flea market or antique mall might have some, but chances are pretty low and prices could range from amazing to terrible. Regardless of where you get your tapes, they're almost always going to be used. Occasionally, you'll come across a mint plastic wrapped tape, but don't expect that to happen often. You'll want to check the condition of the tape before buying. The cardboard sleeve is susceptible to water damage and mold. Even worse, the tape itself can also have mold. Mold on the tape is usually white and can be seen growing on the tape itself inside the cassette. This is an example of mold in a tape. If you see this, I suggest not buying it. Mold is common in humid environments, so be careful buying from humid places. If you live in a humid environment, consider some preventative care for your collection. If you find a tape in your collection with mold, don't put it in your VCR. It can contaminate the VCR and then the other tapes that you play afterwards. I've read about cleaning tape to get rid of mold, but I haven't tried it myself yet, so I won't say any more on that topic. However, if your tape is nothing special, or if the mold is extensive, I advise just throwing it away. It hurts to throw away anime, but some things can't be fixed. Now let's finish off by taking a look at my collection so you can get a sampling of anime on VHS. Let's start off with some Sailor Moon. If you watched my Sailor Moon film trilogy video all the way to the end, I gave a sample of Sailor Moon on VHS. But I don't need to tell you all that, because of course you all watched that video, right? Anyway, here you can see the two most common forms of VHS packaging: cardboard sleeves and plastic clamshells. Now, Sailor Moon is available on DVD and Blu-ray, dubbed and subbed, so why bother with these? Well, these releases feature different dubs than the Viz releases made after 2014. You can get the pre-Viz dubs on DVD, but those can be pretty hard to come by. You may need to sell for VHS for some of them.
You're done. I need my pumpkin to myself now. Ta-ta, Strangeoid.
This one is an unofficial release. Before streaming or torrenting, if you wanted anime from a less than legal source, you would copy VHS tapes. Sometimes this was justified, as lots of anime had no official localization, so this was the only way to watch it. However, this tape, The Girl from Fantasia, is just a copy of the official ADV Films release. But this OVA is just an Urusei Yatsura ripoff, so maybe a cheap bootleg pairs well with the content.
その子が親戚のマロンちゃん？ずいぶん仲がいいのね。本当は親戚じゃないのね。黙っといて！最低。
Speaking of Urusei Yatsura, here is the first volume of that show on VHS. But wait, this doesn't say Urusei Yatsura. The title of this show is Those Obnoxious Aliens. Yes, this is the failed American English dub of Urusei Yatsura, only available on VHS. AnimeGo did release this show on DVD, and Discotek later released it on Blu-ray, but both of those releases only have Japanese audio. Why did this dub fail? Well, the show is funny, and the dub is funny, but we're talking about two different kinds of funny here.
Let me introduce our guest. This is Mr. Invader, who has come from beyond the galaxy to take over the Earth.
What the?
That's right, my boy. I'm Invader. My card.
How nice of you.
Well, I've already mentioned 2 Rumiko Takahashi anime in this video, so why not a third? The Laughing Target is a horror OVA by the legend herself. You may know her for her more comedic tone, but that's not present here at all. This one did have a release on Laserdisc, so if you want better quality, you could go for that. But lots of people love horror on VHS, so maybe this will appeal to you. Here's Fire Emblem and Legend of the Crystals, a sequel to Final Fantasy V. Both of these were never released in North America again. I won't tell you that you're missing some amazing stories, but if you're a big fan of these games, this might pique your interest. Just be aware, these were released in America before the games they were based on, so some localization choices differ from the games.
I'm sorry, Sheeta. I really am.
There's no need for you to apologize, Prince Mars. Everyone in Tellus knows that you're always daydreaming or in a lousy mood or just being stupid.
I said I was sorry.
Big deal! I skipped my sword lesson just to be with you today, and you act like I'm not even here. Maybe I'll just go find some other prince to play with.
I could show you outdated media all day long, but I think we've reached a good stopping point. Thank you for watching, and if you found this guide useful, please like it and subscribe for more anime home media content. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day.